Hi loves, happy Wednesday. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and so I very often go to sleep at night and then kind of wake up in the morning with a massive download that I know needs to be shared. So I just woke up with this. It's on the forefront of my mind and I'm going to share it. It has to do with having a sense of self. So this is quite broad. It's come up, it's come up a few times in the last few days. In conversations where the topic of death has come up. And so this might seem a bit macabre, but I should just say as a disclaimer from the beginning, the point of yoga from a yogic philosophy, and also from an Asian mindset, is that you live each day as if it were your last. So we actually live, we live in preparation for death. That's the whole point. Knowing that is it's a known outcome, right? Like a couple of days I actually said, look, the reality is that we're not immortal. And so the sooner we kind of make peace with the fact that we're not going to live forever, and you make sure that you don't live with any level of unfinished business, the better. So having said that, one of the most important things is living in integrity with yourself. And in order to live with integrity within yourself, you first need to have a very clear sense of self. So I've made this little thing just to show you. From a Western perspective, on this side, there is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so many people learn about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If they study business or if they read any business books, they will come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom of the pyramid, it's a pyramid. And so, at the bottom of the pyramid, we have physiological needs. And so this is like air, water, food, reproduction. It's your most basic needs to be a human. Then we go one up and we have safety needs. One up is love and belonging, esteem, and then at the very top is self-actualization. So self-actualization is the desire to be the most that one can be. But you can't leapfrog to the top and be the most that you want to be unless the bottom of your pyramid is stable. And in order for your pyramid to be stable, you need a clear sense of self. So it overlaps. I've just made a really rough little drawing. It overlaps to yogic philosophy on the other side, which is the chakra system. So there's 7 chakras. The bottom one being security. Then we move up to creativity and sexuality, reproduction, esteem, love, communication, intuition, and then your divine connection or self-realization. So again, this system cannot flow smoothly, and it's not going to be well established if you don't have a very clear sense of self. Now, when people have gone through a traumatic experience, they very often they realize that they've lost their sense of self, and they kind of reinvent themselves. They kind of become almost like a new character, or like a new version of themselves. But then they go through this phase of confusion because it's like this kind of new character and the person that they were in the past doesn't match. And so this foundation, the foundation of self, is totally wobbly and all over the place. This wobbliness of sense of self doesn't have to be because of a traumatic experience. It can very much be from an influence of society. And so this is what I'm seeing now. I've been having some really interesting conversations in the last few months, and there's this common thread that I'm picking up, is that you need to be really clear on the advice that is given from people, or when you have conversations. Like, I am very aware of the information that I take in when I have conversations with people, and I tend to be rather analytical. So for me, I am practical. I'm definitely a realist. I'm also highly intuitive and a total empath. So I feel people very strongly, and I connect with people in this way. I think because I've spent a lot of time in Asia, and also having done, like I've spoken about this a number of times, having done a lot of time in a monastery and doing a practice totally in self-isolation and not being influenced by external factors, my sense of self is very strong and very well established. So when I get information or advice from people that simply doesn't line up to what I know to be my true sense of self and my true nature, because that is ultimately the intention of yogic philosophy, is that you live in accordance with your true nature. But in order to live in accordance with your true nature, you need to know what your true nature is to begin with. So what I'm finding is that a lot of people have kind of leapfrogged within a consumer society. North America is very much a consumer society, so they've kind of leapfrogged to the top of the pyramid, thinking that they're reaching self-actualization, but their own physiological needs are perhaps not being met, their safety needs have not been met, their love and belonging has not been met, and the self-esteem, their personal esteem, is productivity based. So you see this a lot with people in very busy workplaces, is that people feel good because they are producing. But if you take that producing situation out of the equation, so if the person no longer has a job, or something happens to change that productivity situation, so a change in the economy impacts their capacity for production, and that immediately makes the person wobble, because the sense of self has not been established, or that sense of self has been lost along the way. So a few things that has come up that people have said to me that I've reflected on, and within myself, I haven't necessarily said anything at the time, but afterwards I've kind of sat with it and I've thought, this is not who I am, this is not how I engage the world, and it's not who I want to become. And so therefore I don't have to accept it as I don't have to accept it. Like there is acceptance and there is rejection, right? And somewhere in between life flows. So you need to be able to have discernment and figure out what works for you, and then live in accordance with that. So things like, I've had a few conversations where people have said things like, you're going to have to become XYZ. In order for you to do this, you're going to have to become XYZ. And so within myself, I'm like, no, I'm not going to have to become anything other than who I know is true for me. So I know people come and work with me because of who I am, obviously because of the services and the experience and the education and all of these external things that I have. Like I have the qualifications, I have the work experience, I have the diverse cultural experience, but people ultimately come because they feel comfortable with who I am as an individual. So in order for me to maintain that, I don't need to become something else. Another thing that has been said is everyone is in it for themselves. So this doesn't line up for me at all. I don't believe that everyone is in it for themselves. I believe that if you have a clear sense of self and you have an awareness of how you want to impact society, then we're clearly not in it for ourselves. I'm very aware of the ripple effect. I'm very aware of how I would like to impact society. And I'm very well aware of, if today was my last day, I wouldn't want to leave with this feeling of everyone is in it for themselves. It's not in alignment with me as an individual. Another thing that came up was within a mediation conversation, it came up that you don't have to care about the outcome between the parties, you just need resolution. So again, for me, this doesn't sit well, because I do care about the outcome, and because I care about the impact, and I care of how people are left. A number of times this has been said, it's just business. So what I'm finding with this sense of self is that people have very often, they don't have a clear sense of self, and how I recognize this is that there's almost more than one personality. So there's like a business persona, then there's a family persona, and then there's a personal persona. So the person is not living with, they're not in alignment with themselves. Like it's almost schizophrenic in a sense, where there's different personalities with different environments. And so if we do business, then we behave in this way, but if we're kind of friends, we behave in this way. For me, this makes no sense whatsoever, and I don't have the capacity to kind of maintain more than one personality. That sense of self for me is primary. And so when I realize like there's going to be more than one personality that I'm going to have to kind of navigate, then it makes me very wary, because there's no consistency of character. And then the other thing that I've been told is, in order to be successful, you need to socialize a lot, and socializing a lot is going to require alcohol. So this is not in alignment with me. First of all, like, I do have some alcohol now and then, but it's not something that it's not part of who I am. Like, I value my peace, I value my time alone, I value people connecting with me when we are calm, and getting to know me when we are in calm, peaceful situations, not in like crazy, loud places. And so another thing that's come up in the last few days is that there is this realization that in many instances it's kind of like it's a fake persona that is put out in order to engage with people, or a fake persona that's put out in order to get business done. And so this simply doesn't sit with me, not from the way that I live my life, and not from the way that I engage with people. So how this is, it's linked to this in the sense that with these conversations, I immediately know where the person is functioning from within this chakra system, given what is said, or I recognize immediately which areas of the body is having blockages based on this. So the person may have very clear communication, but their sense of identity, which comes from the second chakra, their personal sense of identity is wobbly, and their personal sense of security is wobbly. So it depends very much on what people identify with. So people very often identify with their partner. They're an extension of their partner. I am me because I'm married to this person, or I am me because I have this business. I am me because I have this house, or I am me because I have all of this other stuff. But they actually don't know who they are if that stuff is removed. And then it also links to Maslow, because it will very quickly show you for personal development, again, where the person is kind of functioning and where there are gaps. So the beauty of recognizing the gaps within ourselves is that it gives us the opportunity to actually develop and grow that. And the most important thing with this is that I think the core of what I need to say, having given you all of this information, is that you ultimately need to know what your personal values are and live in alignment with that. Because the minute you start behaving in a way that is expected by societal needs, especially when society, within North America, society is largely driven by consumption. It is a consumer society entirely, and it is driven by marketing. And so marketers have a lot of information about consumer psychology, and they know exactly how to present things or get through to people in a psychological way to directly impact their sales behavior. But this also impacts their personal sense of self, because they get wrapped up in all of these things and then lose their way. So in many instances, people make their way to me, and many of them will say, I've totally forgotten who I am. Like, I don't even know who I am, and I've got all of this stuff, but I have lost my way, or like my inner compass is spinning all over the place, and I don't even know where to begin. And so we begin with this, where they are on this pyramid and where they are functioning from within this chakra system, to get you back to yourself. So I think that's the core of it. If you start following basic trends that is driven by consumption or driven by identifying with things that are outside of yourself, you lose your own personal sense of self. And so this is also one of the reasons why I don't own a TV, because I simply don't want that influence in my house. But for me, the end result is that I don't know when I'm going to die. It's a knowable. It's clearly going to happen. It's a known outcome. But if it was going to be like today or tomorrow, I need to know. For me, I know that I leave with personal integrity, not with a feeling of like being scattered all over the place or having more than one personality, because I've lost my sense of self based on a kind of external influences. So this is really important. If you have any questions about this, or if you're feeling kind of scattered and all over the place and you realize, yeah, I'm heading down a pathway where I really don't know who I am or where I'm going, then feel free to reach out. The email is info@cellularlife.com. You can reach me on the email at cellularlife.com or on social media. So, bye loves. Have a lovely day.